February 4th, 2026. We're here in the Nauset Meeting Room of Town Hall. It's 3:03 p.m. You can join us on Zoom. Info is at the top of our agenda. You can also dial in by phone with a webinar ID that's posted. So I call ourselves to order. Here with us, Select Board Member Andrea Shaw Reed, Michael Herman, myself, your chair, Kevin Galligan, Kim Newman, town manager, and presenting for us our assistant town manager, Mark Rio, and our director of municipal finance, Darren Tangeman. Welcome, everybody, for being in the room. Similar to our workshop last week, any questions through the presentations? I think our presenters are more than happy to take your questions. If I see your hands shoot up, we'll find our appropriate time to get it in. I think Select Board is looking forward to running through what you're presenting, Mark and Darren, on the Town Manager Select Board budget, including the new insert that Amanda, I believe, is here to speak to relative to economic initiatives. DPW, Rich Waldo, superintendent's here. We'll talk about the two positions that are potential, and then we'll get into enterprise funds. So, Mark, Darren, you want to take it away?
All right. I guess want to kind of know, is that the order that you'd like to go in? DPW first?
However you had planned it. Those are topics I thought we'd cover, but however your flow is smoothly set up, please.
Sounds good. You will see everyone should have handouts now. We're going to start with DPW and the enterprise funds as
That's
the
good.
general we have right now. In the memo that was presented, it's in the select board packet, you'll see that we have balanced the three different enterprise funds. At this point, there may be a slight dollar difference on one of the budgets right now, right? Because of no, they're all the same. They're balanced within. Okay, so we're good. We had to make an adjustment on one of the budgets because of some OpenGov complications, but we should be good. So I'll bring up Rich, and Rich has the enterprise funds and DPW. Rich, which budgets do you need us to bring up for you? Just water fund. You want to do water first, or how do you want?
No, I'd actually like to just do a brief introduction first,
Nice.
And then maybe from there we can just go over any questions and things that you want. Okay. So, first off, I'm Richard Waldo. I'm the Director of Public Works Natural Resources here. I want to thank you guys for not having me follow the Chiefs last week. One, I was extremely tired, but two, they're a tough act to follow. They're professional, they're really good at what they do, and I have the utmost respect for them and the department that they run. So I do appreciate that. But as a lot of...
As are you. Don't shortchange yourself. I just had to interrupt you.
Well, thank you.
Especially with the snowstorm. That's
Exactly.
unbelievable.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But a lot of what they had mentioned in their presentation to you really holds true for DPW and Natural Resources as well. Mainly, the key to our operation is our staff. I mean, it is so critical to the functionality of what we do day in, day out is our staff. Not only the stresses that we put on them, particularly in the past month or so, but throughout the year of the demands that we put on them, that they show up, they present themselves, they work in a professional manner, they get things done. So our staffing is key. We have our talented managers behind us in the room, but we also have a highly skilled group of people behind us that know every single trade that there is, and I am truly fortunate to work with this group. I've been public sector 15 years, and I'm okay saying that this is the best group that I've worked with. The way that they get out in the morning, they do their work, they come back, they appreciate this town, everything that they're doing. Really enjoy working with this group. But one thing that was a little different, unlike police and fire, was what is our greatest threat to recruitment and retention within our department. They had mentioned municipal competition. We have that, but we also have that private sector competition that we face with day in, day out. Their Cape Cod has plenty of wastewater projects going on. We have the potential of 2 new bridge replacements that is currently underway planning, and that really entices our labor market to seek out those jobs because of the fact that they are prevailing wage rate paying jobs. So they pay twice as much as what an hourly wage that we can offer them. We have mechanics that are competition with dealerships and private garages. They can make anywhere between $50 to $75 an hour. We can offer $31 to an hour, as well as project managers for engineering projects in high demand. But like police and fire, I will say that the recent collective bargaining, along with the benefits of offerings that we've been able to do in the past year, we have been able to fill 5 key vacancies in the last couple of months and years, some of which had remained vacant for over a year. So with that, I mean, kudos to Kim, the administration team, and the select board for supporting those initiatives, because we're actually getting that talent to become part of this town, which is key for us, key for our operations. So did want to mention that a little bit. Now, in terms of our budget, DPW Natural Resources, we operate 11 different budgets within the general fund. So we have 11 separate budgets in the general fund. We have 3 enterprise funds, and we have a laundry list of capital projects that we manage. The department not only delivers an extensive list of essential services to the community, but we also strive to be financially responsible and lessen the burden to taxpayers. In the last 2 years, our department has been able to secure $5.7 million in grant funds. To name a few of those, $1 million for Rock Harbor, $2.7 million for Pilgrim Lake Fish Ladder, $1.1 million for culvert replacement under Herringbrook Road, $500,000 in stormwater grants, and several other smaller grants from DEP, as well as Maya safety grants. So our team works hard to be able to offset a lot of the requests that we ask day in, day out, and we use some of the requests that are approved at town meeting with your endorsement to leverage that to get these grants. And I think it's very powerful for what we do. So although I'm going to talk about a lot of the asks that we have and the wants, just please note that we use that as leveraging. We try to capitalize on that and bring more money in. So with that, wanted to mention that. So FY27, our budget was prepared with the from the lens of level service and financial responsibility. So within those 11 budgets that operate within the general fund, which includes divisions such as facilities, highway, parks, water also operates through the general fund, and the harbor master's office. When you combine all those budgets together, we're increasing 2.55%. We're not having a big ask here. Most of our expenses are pretty much flat. The notable increases are the collective bargaining that we have with our union. We have a young group of staff. They're getting their step raises. They're getting their COLAs. They're at 5.56%. So those are the majority drivers for each one of those 11 individual budgets. We also have rental fee increases, certain fee increases that are dictated by the market. One of them is being portable toilets. Just the cost of portable toilets going up. Each year, we collectively, with all the 15 other communities on the Cape, we go out, we solicit a bid as a group, as a whole, to try to get competitive prices. Some years they go up, some years they go down. Some years we get a vendor that comes in, wants to make themselves known in Cape Cod, and they're not able to deliver, and we have to go back out to bid. So we're in one of those years where we had to go back out. We've already done so. We see that the increase in portable toilets is going up. Other services such as trash services, picking up at the beaches, picking up at the facilities, those are some of the drivers for the fee increases. And then the last one was the water overtime budget. This reflects a new on-call program that we have. It was part of the collective bargaining, but it's just being presented in the budget this year. So it looks like it's going up a bit. And basically what that is people are required to hold the phone. We get a service leak, we get a water main break. They're responsible to answer that phone and respond to the call and basically dispatch a larger team to repair it. In the past, there was only a portion of the distribution calls were provided with that on-call stipend. Now we also have the treatment part of that. So anyone that gets a call for treatment or distribution, they get a stipend for being on call. So they hold the phone, they respond to it. This is industry practice. I think this is some of the reasons why we weren't able to fill the water positions. Since we changed that, we're able to get ourselves a new water foreman, we're able to get ourselves a new senior equipment operator. So those improvements are going a big way in that recruitment. So those are the 11 budgets. I'm happy to answer any questions on those. There's a great deal of information on those. If not, I can keep going into the enterprise funds and just talk about each one of those as a whole, what the big notable changes are, and then we can open it up to questions on just the budget as a whole.
How about if we pause before diving into enterprise, because
Okay.
those are kind of separate. Just take any questions on the 11 budgets that board members may have. Andrew is saying no. Michael,
Right now.
anything?
I saw that you split out the lighting, street lighting into a new
Yes.
category this year.
Yeah,
Is
that-
there, where did that come from before?
Where did what come from? That is a
think
separate budget on its own.
Always.
Always been lighting, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's no history in it. That's why wasn't sure, like, when you look at it,
Okay.
there's no history for 6.
Yeah, so
5.
you have not been used to seeing all of the different divisions broken out.
Right.
We're always rolled up as just DPW lines, and so because of OpenGov and the way that we are budgeting, you're gonna see those individual divisions broken out. So you see windmills, streetlights, those are things that were always budgeted for, but not,
They were just grouped together in
Yes.
those line items and
right.
instead of
But
being,
now you're seeing more detail.
which is great. I'm just wondering, because then it's hard to tell if what went up, what didn't go up.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
a couple things on that streetlight. So again, this is one of those contracts that we go out, we solicit as a community, Cape-wide, for the repair and the maintenance of the streetlights. Go out as a group. We get a contractor. That vendor comes in, takes care of the streetlights when they're out. They do an audit, going around, find out which ones are out. The little bit of an increase is because the LED lamps were under a warranty program, and that warranty program has now come to an end. So we're going to have to recoup a little more of the cost of maintenance of the streetlights.
And then you mentioned in the water department, the on-call stipend. And I think people know with this weather outside, I've heard a lot of people have benefited from ion water with frozen pipes bursting. And they've gotten calls from the water department, so good little PSA that if anybody is not signed up to ion water and is an Orleans resident, you should sign up because thousands of gallons can leak out really quickly, really fast, and
Yeah.
it's very expensive.
Good motion.
No, that's all I have right now. I mean, I appreciate your, the diligence, and it seems that you, on these 11, when you were saying that you were, as a total, going up 2.2%, I think you said?
2.55.
2.55. I mean, on these 11, it looks like it's a total of 1.3. So I
We're
assume
looking at-
most of these others are significant increases, not significant, but the other increase would be part of, because of the enterprise funds?
I don't believe that's a correct number. It's 128,000, 129,000, which is the increase. So
We're working still off of what
Yeah.
we received like 3 or 4
Yeah,
weeks ago.
Right,
so-
Yeah.
and as you remember, there's issues with some of the historic data there, so.
Which I understand, and I know we're
So I would go
transitioning, and
with what Rich is saying, I would,
it's just hard sometimes to comment when we're still, because we don't have access to OpenGov. So like,
and frankly, that isn't in OpenGov because of the history of how it was budgeted. So it's challenging this year,
for
come
everybody.
up with those percentage values with those broken out.
Okay. I mean, that's it for me right now. Thank you.
Mark Matheson, remote, any questions for, okay. So I have 2, Rich, only because Michael sparked a recall on streetlights. So around the, I'll call it the mini roundabout, there were decorative lights that got hit, and some of those got hit many, many years ago. No doubt they go through insurance claims. Where are we in getting those decoratives replaced? Or are we ever going to see them replaced?
Well, it's great. The ones that happened previously, and we've had more that happen more recently. I've been working with DOT to get those replaced, and I've got confirmation from them that they're going to be replaced. Just doesn't know exactly when. But they have acknowledged that part. They have also acknowledged that this is the responsibility of the town for those decorative lighting. And I said, that's fine, okay. And We've had a recent accident where a car turned over and hit one of those lights, and we immediately processed that through the insurance process. So basically, that one's probably going to get replaced first, besides the other one. But DOT has acknowledged the fact that they will replace the other ones that are missing.
Yeah. My only concern is more of a safety one because there still are conductors that are exposed.
Yeah.
And I know somebody tried to put a cap over that, but, you know, between plowing and snow, I mean, it presents an unsafe condition. And if anybody saw the news last night on Newbury Street, there were, you know, half a dozen underground electrical, I'll call events that occurred and blew up a lot of manholes. So electrical safety is like, you know, should be our concern. The only other one, Rich, and again, no surprise because you know the select board has in their goals for this year, looking into the tree care that we do. The whole tree budget to me has been so, I'll say, ignored over the years prior to you getting here.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty much cannibalized under the previous administration, just ruined. And we have public shade trees that need, and I'm not talking, you know, brush hogs that, you know, go along the side road and roadways for sightlines. We need to care for our public shade trees. We need to inventory them. We have to have a true tree warden that cares about our shade trees. This budget is not going to do it. It ain't.
Yeah.
We need to plant, we need to care for them, we need to assess them, we need to prune them, you know? So, we used to have solid staff in this town, and we don't.
I've heard about the robustment of the past and, you know, something that we've talked about internally as a team of things that we want to do. But we are fortunate to have a vendor that we work with locally that has a lot of history of working in the past. And we've been in talks with them about programs that they've done, treatment for the trees, what are we missing, what needs to be done. Actually, you know, one of the things we talked about is a southern pine beetle, and, you know, the fact that they might be coming back and being able to, you know, destroy our forestation with the pine trees. So we're talking about preventing those. Unfortunately, we don't have a certified tree warden. It falls under the assistant highway manager's position. We're trying to get them into a program to be able to get certified. Very knowledgeable about trees, but just doesn't have that certification, that credentials, which is something that we want to do. I will tell you, this is not something that goes lightly. It's something we've talked about many times. I think right now the budget is sufficient for at least us to get back into a program, but we have to come up with other things. We need to have, you know, more of a robust tree bylaw. We got to have some educational materials for the public so they understand what is a public shade tree, what's not a public shade tree, the boundaries of it. You know, if you plant a public shade tree within a public land, that it becomes a public shade tree, even though it's your donation. So I think we still have to do a little bit of the education component. Had a good experience with this in Provincetown. If you have a look at their Provincetown tree bylaw, you know, I helped author that, and I think we got to do something similar here, but then also get the cyclical tree program working again with our vendors.
I would just say, again, intersection of Route 6A in Maine, you know, we have some historic elms that survived, and they were cared for by previous tree wardens. In fact, my father-in-law was the tree warden, which is why I'm so passionate about this.
Yep.
And, you know, I've remnants all through the house of the care that he took for that in his notes and things like that. And it kills me to see the ignorance of our public shade trees. It just does. So I know you're on it. I know it's a new day, and I look forward to that. So,
Thank you.
Andrew?
I'd love to pile on here because the tree warden was also actively engaged in the regular tree trimming program with Eversource and was quite knowledgeable and saved trees, I know, along Main Street in East Orleans when we had a business there. Dan intervened, and things I would not have known protected old historic trees. And so also with the age of some of our investments, like Orleans Improvement Association had a history of planting ornamental trees, and as those die out or be threatened, it's part of our identity that I think we need to take some time and thought, and ties into economic development and how we present ourselves.
Michael?
If I can, now that we're talking about it, you know I love trees, and Rich, we've talked about this when we were working with the park and Veterans Park, and
Oh, yeah.
and looked at those different programs Chatham has and Provincetown has. So the Provincetown program is amazing. And I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah, so when we're looking at the budget here, we have about 134,000 in the tree. But that salary is for, who's that salary in the tree?
It's the assistant highway manager,
Okay,
which
so-
is the tree warden.
But the majority of the time's taking care of the highways, I would assume, right?
They balance their work, but, you know, I would say that highway definitely is a big part of their job.
Okay. Because, I mean, people will look at this and say to us, you know, you're devoting a good amount of time. And I know you're looking to do this in the future, but I just wanted to jump in because I think you hear from three of us on this select board how trees to us are very important for the town. And there's a lot of opportunity where we can do better. And you guys are doing amazing, and ladies, but to me, I think it's something in the coming year we should be putting more effort and focus on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to enterprise.
So, as mentioned, we have this,
Oh, please, Lynn Bruno on the overall.
Lynn Bruno, Seacrest Drive. Just maybe two minor things on the DPW budget itself. Maybe remind us in this public meeting that we shut down two of the enterprise funds, and therefore, some of those resources have been gone back into the DPW budget, and touch briefly on the fact that that exists. And then the other question would be, maybe, do you want to do enterprise first, or when do you want to do a brief summary of the capital budget and the CIP, before, during, or after?
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Lynn.
Want me to speak to this? So last year, when the town meeting voted to close the moorings and the harbor enterprise funds, there were some retained earnings that were kept that were still there that have to be appropriated at the next town meeting. We're going to make a recommendation. You'll see it in the warrant to use those funds to fund some existing infrastructure requirements at the harbor. I think Nate talk more about that, but that's something that we're looking at doing. It has a direct linkage to what they were previously used for.
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Please.
Yeah, I just had a quick question in regards to the iteration of the budget that we all have, just for some clarification. Are we going to be seeing an updated version of that, or are you waiting for OpenGov to be available for us to start looking at all the changes? Do we have a sense of what
Mark,
that?
you when do you think we're working with OpenGov? I'll let Mark.
Yeah, you'll see an updated version soon. I would say that a vast majority of the numbers that you have already are the same. There's very
I'm
few.
wondering about some of the squigglies and blanks and whatnot. Are we going, has there been, I mean, yeah, it seemed incomplete in some areas, but you're saying what we have is what is,
The numbers under the FY27 lines there may be some changes since then, but very few.
okay,
So in terms of what you see in the FY27 column, those numbers are pretty solid, especially with DPW.
okay. And then this is a question for Rich, I think. Rich, I noticed on the CIP, the new roof for the COA. Is there any consideration to solar panels for that roof once it's upgraded? Do you
Next
know?
meeting, yeah.
There's consideration for it. We've already talked to a consultant about the existing solar panels that are there. We talked about the fact that we got to remove them before we can repair the roof, and whether it made sense to put the same panels up. The vendor feels that the existing panels are still good, but maybe some of the other mechanics might want to be upgraded at that same time. So we're putting a conservative budget in there for that COA roof. I think we're going to fall within that number, and hopefully significantly less, but I think we got a good number there.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please, Tim, come on up. Who's on DPW?
No, I just wanted to, when are you going to be closing out the discussion of the general fund? I, as you know, as we talked a week ago,
May 4th.
am interested in the assessor's budget, and I wanted to make comments about that. And I don't know if that happens before we get into the enterprise funds, which seem to be sort of a different topic, or whether they
Yep.
happen later.
Aaron?
So today, the select board will decide on whether or not right now, we do have a scheduled public hearing on March 4th that will include the capital budget as per our charter. I think the intent, my recommendation at that point will be to recommend that we have any remaining general fund budgets discussed on that date as well. So March 4th could be the date. We could also have I don't know whether or not who's available on February 11th, but February 11th could be another day for more budgets. But today is very specific about what the select board is looking at.
Yeah.
So that'll be the select board decision today.
Thanks, Tim. Okay. Yes. Tony?
Tony Pearl, Pride's Path. Rich, there was a water main break at the end of my street yesterday. The time between the call and the fix was something like 2 hours. That's incredible if relative to any place I've ever lived. Thank
You're
you.
here. Thank you for that.
We love those comments.
We do.
I got to tell you that the water department and their staff working through some really brutal conditions addressing these water mains, but do appreciate that. And honestly, there have been some people in the community that has reached out to us as well, for some of the operations, and we do appreciate that as well.
And one thing also in terms of the above and beyond work, which has in the past been totally ignored, is there was a coordinated project done last Thursday evening between DPW, police, and fire to band together and get the sidewalks cleared on Main Street. In the past, my history, that was the last thing that ever got tended to. So it not only supports safety, but supports businesses and prepares us in the event of another event. So, Rich.
Fortunately, it didn't happen last weekend.
It didn't.
All right, for the three enterprise funds, I'm going to start with the transfer station first. The good news is it's down 2.3%. Some of those budget drivers is really the reduction of the capital overlay. In the year previous, we had 110. This year, we had 60. That reflects positively on the enterprise fund when you look at it as a whole. We did have an increase in indirect cost of 5.1%, which equates to about $13,000. Right now, indirect costs accounts for about 21% of our operating budget within the transfer station. Already talked about the contractual obligations of the union. Our staff, our transfer station staff, is paid out of the enterprise fund. So any contractual agreements also affects them as well, which really leads to a slight increase in the overtime budget just because of the increased cost, but also because we're trying to assign actual overtime expenses to the enterprise fund. We're opposed. If someone in highway covered the enterprise fund or covered at the transfer station, they were paid at overtime out of highway. We don't want that. We want that overtime to be paid out of the transfer station, so we're just have some positive accounting on that. Overall, the operation, we expect 60% or right around 60% of the operation to be covered from revenues. We know we discussed this before, that there's going to be some general fund support to the enterprise fund. Tricky to try to fully balance this. I know we've had some thoughts in the past. Last year, we did increase fees. We're starting to see an increase. That was about an $80,000 increase in fees. We're going to go down one more time between now and town meeting and do an exercise of just trying to identify some additional costs that we might be able to increase. We did a lot of the increases last year with the Board of Health. Now it's just going to be some of that light iron, recycling material, tires, things like that.
Mattresses, maybe?
Mattresses, we went up last year.
Okay,
Significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were losing money on mattresses. We were able to recover that.
yeah. I just noticed, Rich, today, if folks didn't catch the Chronicle online, the Chatham Select Board made some very significant fee increases in their transfer station.
Yeah.
Some were like from tiny to very large, so they're gonna have some sticker shock for some folks.
Yeah, the good thing is we went through the exercise last year where we had new contracts, new solid waste contracts, new hauling contracts. So we were able to make some of the adjustments last year, which are carrying over to this year as well. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, any questions? I'll go Andrea first, go ahead.
Oh, mine's easy. The credit card fee uptake, can you tell us about that? It went from like 5,000 to 15?
You correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the reality is we're a cashless system there, and so it's credit card. And with the credit cards, we get the fees that are associated with it. We do try to account for that when we set our fees for the
Yes,
the
that's
different
my
items. But there is an identified fee that we pay, which is the credit card fee that, so all the
I
transactions.
guess my question is that covered by revenue from the selling of the sticker or whatever? or
We
the
do take
entry?
account of that. It's hard to identify it to what people bring in, but we do account for that as a whole.
So the growth number might be the number of people using credit cards as opposed to the actual cost of the service went up?
No, those are actual costs of the service, the 3% charge that's assessed to it. When you look at a fee for a particular item, things that we include are the direct disposal cost of something, the handling of a material that eventually gets disposed, any hauling.
I'm just looking at the use of credit cards. The service, the fee the town is paying has almost tripled. And so is that meaning that more people are processing credit cards through the town and we're covering with the fee? Or does the town itself have a different reason that those fees would go up?
I don't know if you know historically, but I think we have been under budgeting.
So historically, the budget has been under, if the
Might
credit
want
card
to-
fees are usually.
Absorbed by it.
Yep, Stacy's up.
Stacy, I work with Rich. So historically, the credit cards were put in there around $5,000, but they're usually around $14,000 a year. And that's not sticker sales, that's gate sales, when people go and they, pay as they throw. No, we don't do that, or they have bags of trash or certain
Right.
items. That's on those items. So when, in the sticker office, our sticker processor also charges a credit card fee
Yes.
that they charge, but they see it up front. Transfer station's a little different.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael?
I can add
Oh,
to
go
that.
ahead.
So one of the things of a past practice to things that we're changing now is on a budgetary line, in the past, you were never allowed to run those lines in a deficit. You always had to do an immediate
Right.
budget transfer into that budget line, which almost made it seem like you always perfectly budgeted every single time. And that's not what we're doing now. So by doing this new exercise of letting lines run into a deficit, we're seeing where we're under budgeting and where we're over budgeting. So we tried to, last year, make some of those corrections in the budgetary lines, and you'll see a lot of activity where we're reducing some, adding some, reducing some, adding some, and it's really trying to put the money with the line that it should be. Which I think is just a great improvement.
Can I jump in here for a second too? Because the Finance Committee has heard this for the last couple of years. The practice before I arrived was something called budget adjustments, which actually isn't allowed. And so we knew that eventually when we set up a system, we wanted to charge to the actual lines throughout the budget so that we could correctly budget to make sure we weren't over or under budgeting. So you're going to see some of that, as Rich is saying right now, so that we can get it right, so that we can have real data to analyze from going forward.
Yeah, you can see in FY25 actuals on your page, that number was 12,164. But the budget number for FY26 is 5, so this is clearly an adjustment to reality.
Michael?
Yeah, hi, Rich. So I know we got these printouts today, but I'm just kind of looking at this where it looks like the expenses went up 30% at the transfer station. Is that correct, or it seems high to me?
Expenses went up 1.7%.
Yeah, so and then it says that revenues are 84, but revenues look like they went from 787,000 to 1.4 million. So it's hard, and I know you guys are working through this, but it's for me to get these things in the afternoon of the meeting and then a couple hours later try to figure out this or ask questions is a challenge. And for people at home who might want to look at the budget, it's a challenge. And we're going through it this year, and I'm all supportive of it because the hard work you guys are doing on open.gov, because I think in the coming years, it's going to be so much easier for all of us to be able to track and look at these things and not dependent on town staff. But I don't know if you're seeing that.
So I can tell you a couple of things on that piece, Michael. So I don't know from an accounting standpoint how these numbers were entered into Munis and the individual line items, because I think this is really the first time we're going through these lines for the enterprise funds. I think it was in the past kind of a broad number. Here's the expense number. Here's the revenues. We didn't get into the down nitty gritty of all of these pieces, right? So there are some unbudgeted numbers for FY26 in the system, and therefore it's going to create this discrepancy of, well, that's not really the percentage change, right? So one of them, for example, that I can point you to, like budgeted surplus, there was no number put into that for FY26. So it creates this artificial increase, right? You can see in FY26, there was no number put in there for what the indirect costs were in Munis, so it's not pulling that in. So you look at it looks like it's a $279,000 increase, but in reality, there was a number in there. It's just not in Munis, and so it puts this. It's hard to see through some of that, but when you have time, I know you received that today, and thank you for your patience. But when you start to look through it, you'll see where those gaps are in the FY26 budget column, and you'll be able to see. It's only a few spots, but it makes that big difference.
But I know you're looking at this in detail, both of you and all of
Yes.
staff, so thank you.
I think, Michael, also to add, what I'm seeing is, which I don't believe in the past, because we didn't have this format last year or previous, was we're showing this enterprise is picking up responsibility for its debt service.
Yes,
That's a change.
that's a big change.
That's a
And
big
that was a
change.
change last year's
Yeah.
as
Right.
well.
And from, if I may continue,
Please.
from a philosophical point of view, I mean, I know we're still at 60% subsidizing the transfer station, or 40% we're subsidizing, excuse me. I do feel, it's kind of stayed that number over the last 5 years. We've had those discussions. It's been around 62%. I think it's 62, or it was, but either way, I would love to see us as a board, not in this meeting and not such a discussion now, but I think we need to start moving up towards reducing the subsidy of the transfer station, and those are going to be hard choices. but
Reducing it?
Reducing the subsidy, and maybe we do it in increments of 5% a year, or something like that. I don't know how we can do it, but I think as we're looking at the affordability, we constantly need to be vigilant on this, and it can't remain static as a percentage as the budgets go up in the future, so.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say is, thank you for the food composting, another PSA, and for your team putting it together and getting a grant. You didn't mention the grant from the food composting. I think you got a $3,000 grant. But I look forward to seeing with you and Calvin, thanking him and the team, of how that impact of moving the weight of the tonnage off of our hauling costs. And hopefully that's going to have a benefit for the town.
Yeah.
Looking
Thank
forward
you.
to it. Thank you.
And just so you know, we do look at the subsidy in the transfer station enterprise. We talk heavily about the beaches enterprise fund and the fact of, what's the sustaining life of that. And certainly we look at some of the expenses that we have. I mean, we look at the indirect cost expense. We've had many conversations in there, and that's a tough one to get over. But 20% of the budget is indirect cost. When you add that debt onto it, that's another percentage. You have like hazardous waste day that doesn't generate any revenue. That's just a direct expense. So these little programs that are initiated by the towns but are impacted here are really why that subsidy is there. Trash that we bring as a town to the transfer station, there's no charge with that. The cost of running that compost program and having that soil sifted at a tune of $2,500 or $10,000 a year, there's no revenue that really generated that. So we're trying to look at these programs that we offer that really are starving the enterprise fund and just trying to see where that balance is. And hopefully at some point, because I know we did it last year, I believe we landed on a number about 37% of a general fund subsidy to the enterprise fund. I don't think it was ever adopted, but that was where we were at the time. And I think we still got to pick up that exercise and figure out what is that right number for this particular enterprise fund, the transfer station, on where we should be for subsidy.
And hoping we can have a philosophy multi-year going forward.
Yep.
Okay, Mark Madison, any question on this enterprise fund? You good? So one quick one, more for Darren, I think, is I was pleased to see the allocation of debt service going down. So that means the borrowings associated with work solely done at the transfer station are reducing, correct?
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, that's we're seeing that with the transfer station. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about. There's discussions about subsidy, if you don't mind. I think
Please.
there's a question about. I think Kim's intent, correct me if I'm wrong, was a March meeting to discuss kind of the trajectory of like the structural budget deficit that most of these enterprise funds are facing, not this year, but next year. And you'll see in these budgets that I think it's the transfer station it's pretty slim in terms of where it's at today. It's basically just covering what it needs to this year, but it doesn't necessarily cover the full subsidy and retained earnings requirements that I think that we would need to meet the enterprise fund policy. And so, but it can still be managed this year. And if we need to backfill it, we can approach the finance committee for potential reserve transfer if we needed to. But I think what we're looking at right now is that there needs to be a review of these, and fees need to potentially be adjusted. Obviously, different philosophies about whether or not how that would happen. And so that's a conversation, I think, in March.
Ed, please come on up.
Ed Mahoney, Anson Hunter Lane. Haven't really had a chance to look at these enterprise fund budgets. But what I did do is look at total expenses versus total revenues. And I saw that in each instance, total expenses equal total revenue. And that the indirect costs associated with each of the enterprise funds it equals the difference between the revenues and expenses. I would like to know what's the rationale in coming up with the indirect expenses that we associate with each enterprise fund. Is it to offset the excess revenue it's generating?
Good question. And this is actually in the budgets itself. To the far right, you'll see this when OpenGov is available. But the fiscal notes that we have in there talk about this. The reason why you're seeing it like that is because DLS has a standard set of how indirect costs are applied to enterprises.
Darren, just again.
Department of Local Services. Sorry.
Yeah.
Has a model that is used for that. In this instance, we could not take all of the indirect costs this year because of the revenue, specific revenue, like the revenue. We wanted to make sure the budgets were balanced, so we did not take as much as we normally would. But we did make a note, so in the future, next year, as a select board or the Board of Health address fees, that number would maybe go up. That makes sense.
It just seems
Can
more
I-
than coincidental.
No, so let me just add in here too. So you have an enterprise fund policy, And for years, the calculation was this, which is you take the entirety of your operating budget, and then you divide it by the size of the enterprise fund, and you apply that percentage to the budget. And that's how you get whatever the number is, and then that gets multiplied by the cost of those individual lines. So somewhere in last year's elaborate budget sheets, there's a calculation sheets that tracks all of those. And what's difficult about that, which you probably will remember, is every time we change the budget in any way, that number changes. So if the budget grows or shrinks, you have to go back and readjust all the enterprise funds. So there is some methodology. I'm not saying it's correct, but I do think, Darren, looking at the DLS and getting more
Yeah.
regulated
I
is
just
better.
I just find that the indirect allocation of expense exactly offsets to the dollar.
Yes, it
The
would.
difference between
We have to
revenue and
balance.
expense. So it doesn't seem like it's an allocation of, let's say, town hall expenses to the enterprise fund. It just means it's a plug.
Well, no,
it's-
the plug is actually
It's taken out.
budgeted surplus too. If those two things combined are your, you could budget up to 10%, right, for budgeted surplus, and then you could some percentage of indirect costs. And those two numbers do become your balancers for your enterprise funds.
So then the enterprise fund does not operate at a deficit.
So let me mention something.
It's one way or
'cause
the other.
It's-
Revenues equal expense.
I have an
It
answer.
always is,
deficit.
because indirect costs are technically,
We
I have
one
an
at a
answer
time,
for you.
please.
So, for clarification and for everyone, because this is going to come up again, if you look at page 3
Of what?
on your enterprise fund budget for transfer station,
Transfer,
says-
transfer
page 3,
station?
transfer
I
station,
only have 2 pages. My packet has 2 pages.
page 3.
should be 3 pages.
Have it?
So, under other uses, general fund,
Yeah,
that line is our indirect costs.
279,000.
Correct. Under revenues, other sources, general fund, that is the tax subsidy. The indirect costs,
What is, I'm sorry, I missed that.
under revenues,
Yeah,
495,100, other sources, general fund, number is 540,407.
yeah.
Those are that's a tax subsidy to the enterprise fund. So we are injecting tax revenues into to balance the enterprise fund budget.
Okay, so the
And so-
540 is really the deficit.
Right.
Got it.
Exactly.
And to calculate our subsidy would be dividing 540 by the total expenses.
So on the 279, that is calculated like all of the other enterprise funds are in terms of figuring out the indirect costs. In this case, in the transfer station budget, the 54407 is to basically balance the enterprise fund budget.
Got it. Thank you. That clarified it.
Okay, good. Tony?
Tony Pearl, Pride's Path. I'm one of the few that likes the way we have enterprise funds. And what I like about it is the kind of discussion that goes on here and the highlight of everything happens within those numbers. And it brings out things that, there are anomalies in it and things like that. But there was a great push to get rid of enterprise funds because they're not making money. Or I didn't understand quite we wanted to get it, but I just want to put in a vote for keeping enterprise funds because I think this is one of the best ways for us to look at particular areas of the budget rather than the whole enterprise of the town.
Thank you. All right. Anything else on transfer station? What's next, Rich?
Beaches, if we could. So the beaches fund is increasing by 11.4%. The main drivers of this is capital outlay is increasing by 412,000. So that's a direct impact to the overall percentage of things. We went from 200 and something to 477,000 this year. I think one of the things I'd like to explore with the finance team is instead of having that a direct hit into the cash reserves, that maybe if the possibility we could, bond that over 5 years or 10 years, so each year payment would have been $35,000 or $60,000 versus a $477,000 hit right now. So things that, we've been having so many discussions about all the budgets and just thinking about different things. I think those are one of those things I'd like to look at in the future, so we don't have that $477,000 hit to retained earnings in 1 year and just kind of.
Yeah, because your point is, this is equipment that could last 10, 15 years.
Exactly.
Right.
It-
It's not just equipment, it's infrastructure.
it's
Infrastructure
planning
as well, that's going to last for 30 years, right?
Yeah. We have a reduction in indirect costs, 95,000. Still around $500,000 of indirect cost that goes to the enterprise fund. We were able to increase budget surplus by 68,000. This falls in line with the enterprise fund policy, having a 10% reserve. The point of that is someday we have a rainy summer, we don't get much stickers at visitors. How do we recover that loss? We have it in that budgetary surplus, we have that in there. So we're able to get that up to policy. We have our contractual obligations with the unions that I had spoke about. We're also proposing a 5.5% increase for all lifeguards. We have fallen behind on the pay for the lifeguards to the tune of other towns paying around $24 an hour. We're still at about $19 to $21 an hour. We would like to bump them up 5.5%. I think in total, it's a $70,000 increase, but it's really just to be able to compete with our neighboring towns, just because we need the best of the best on that outer Cape, or that outer beach to be able to serve. So that is an increase in there. And I guess in closing on the Beach Enterprise Fund, I will say that revenues and retained earnings will cover 100% of the cost of this fund.
I know.
So,
How did that happen?
so we were before, if I may?
Please.
I mean, we were subsidizing by 600,000
This year.
in the past years.
So last year, you did not subsidize Beaches Enterprise Fund,
Right.
this current fiscal year.
Is what?
FY '26, you did not subsidize beaches with any tax dollars.
Okay, and FY '25?
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, because it's on here.
What you're doing
Retained earnings
moving
is-
down your retained earnings.
Right.
To our savings. So we are subsidizing with our savings.
Right, it's just not with, like, transfer station, you're using tax
I got you, I
dollars.
got you. I got- So either way, it's not, revenues aren't covering the cost.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I'm trying to say, and that's okay, and that's what we decide to run as a town. If you're, whether you're taking out of your savings account to cover it, or whether it's not, I mean, to me, yes.
You have
can
to
call-
cover it.
You gotta call it different things, but,
But the big difference is it's not being subsidized by the general fund.
which is great,
Okay.
fantastic, I love that, but we're also using up our savings account for the rainy days, or that don't have stickers, which is what that was set aside for, right?
Correct.
So, all I'm saying is, I think you guys are doing a great job. It's a hard conversation. Our beach is amazing. It's the #1 beach on Cape Cod, and I'd love to see our ranking at the #1. I've said this before. Yeah, with Nate, your team, the whole team at the beach is amazing. And we're very fortunate to have the ability to be able to drive out on our beaches. And I just would like to see us, like the transfer station, start, and we can call it whatever we want. I'll call it a subsidy. You can call it using up our savings account or retained earnings. But I'd love to see us moving in that direction. And if I will, I consider it our single biggest economic development asset is our beach. And I've mentioned this here before. We have thousands and thousands of people that go to that beach every day in the summer. And we're bringing those people to Orleans, whether they are living here or whether they're just visiting. And we're doing that for our businesses and our town by using up our retained earnings or subsidies. I think we need to make sure we're looking, I would always look at my #1 revenue draw. Of course, we know in the town it's real estate taxes. But the second has got to be the beach revenue, right? So, and you can't really count the transfer station revenue because that's all just done by residents of the town for the most part. I would think 90-something%. There's very few people that are coming in and paying daily type of things. So all that being said, that's where I see the shift of economic development. or the focus of infrastructure. We have an infrastructure plan that Nate has put together for the beach, if you will. How do you run the beach? But I'd love to have the conversations, and I know we put it on our goals. It's not just how we run the beach and make sure when there is a coastal situation that we can move the headquarters or the what are we calling it, the administration building to the upper parking lot and making sure other things. You know, yeah, how do we, the services, I don't want to get left behind in a way that you've just mentioned we did with our lifeguards, maybe in the salary where we weren't keeping up with other towns and competitive. I want to make sure we have a plan to keep our beaches competitive, because the minute we stop increasing, you know, filling that parking lot and getting visitors to want to come here and go some to another one of our neighboring beaches, it's going to be too late. So we have a gem right now. We all know it. I think it's the biggest draw in this town. And I've had to, you know, what are the other things that brings that many people to this town? Nothing, whether they want to move here or visit. How do we translate that to getting them to the rest of the town? And how do they're going to come because of our improved services. Does that make?
Michael, you're hitting on things that we internally have a very in-depth conversation on, because you bring up a philosophical point, which is the fact that our beaches provide much more to this town than to the day-to-day user that pays that fee. And right now, we're putting the operation 100% on those users of the beaches. And when we dip into our savings account at a rate of 600,000, 500,000 a year, we are on a trajectory to deplete that. And
That
so
scares me.
how do we avoid that in the future? I mean, can we continue to put it on the backs of the users of the beach, the day passes, the resident beach sticker? Or is there a component of the town-wide that sees the benefit of getting people into our town, to our beaches, because they're going to our sandwich shops to buy sandwiches before they go out into the beaches? So whether that looks like some of these big debt obligations that we got coming up with, the administration building, stuff like that, whether that stays on the back of the enterprise fund or if that's something that's covered from a general fund, I think those discussions do have to be had. We had it in our budget meetings with the administration team about looking forward, looking down that line. We can raise fees, we can raise it each and every time, but eventually we're gonna price everyone out. So we got to be able to find that balance. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's a very important topic for us. For Nate and for our team, it's something we 100% agree with.
Yeah. So thank you. I just wanted, if I could just add, I appreciate that, and that's kind of what I wanted to hear, that I know you guys are, and we have the best team in place to actually figure this out. But to me, keep borrowing $600,000 from an account is not a good strategy. It's not a long-term strategy, because that account will deplete and go out. And changing a fee from $32.50 to $35 isn't going to move the needle, I don't think, in the grand scheme. We're gonna have to make some hard decisions and investments as a town. But again, our number one resource, if you will, or economic driver that is not real estate, is that beach. And I think it's some hard conversations and planning that we need, and we all believe, and we all want that to be the number one beach on Cape Cod. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Mark Matheson, anything on beaches? Okay,
I'm good.
thanks. And last but not least,
Is sewer, wastewater. We all love
Oh, yes.
wastewater. We do have some good things going on here. Happy to report some.
I'm sorry, before we move on, I just want to provide some clarity on some of this, because as folks look through it, you're going to see things that might look strange.
Sewers?
So, no, we're still on beaches.
okay,
So,
back to beaches.
under revenues, there's one account. This is a filtering problem that I'm still trying to figure out. But if you look at revenues on page 3, it says there's $28,428 from a general fund account line. Because of filtering, your previous years, you're going to see very large revenue numbers that have nothing to do with this enterprise fund. It's pulling total numbers from revenues under the general fund. So those have nothing to do with, you're not going down $50 million in revenues.
Okay.
So just focus on FY '27 numbers.
Mark is basically saying, trust me.
Yeah.
And we do.
We do.
We do.
Absolutely.
And Darren and everybody, but there are questions.
Okay. Sewer enterprise.
Okay, sewer enterprise fund, so we're expecting a 10.2% increase in the operating budget of sewer enterprise. The drivers of the increase is increase in a service contract. We have our contractual obligation with Veolia. We have increases in debt service. There's the anticipation that the Phase 2 debt is going to hit in fiscal year '27. So that is one of the reasons for the increase. We have indirect cost increase of 5%. But to highlight some of the news here is last year we used $2.4 million from the stabilization fund to balance this budget. This year we're expected only to use $1 million.
Nice.
Some of the reasons for that are, one, better estimate of revenues. We're able to estimate revenues better now. Reason why, we're having properties connected. We're seeing what the flow's coming in. It's not just a fictitious number. They're real numbers. We can start estimating those better. Phase 2 will be coming online. We're going to start getting more flows from Phase 2. And that basically is helping out the overall budget look. And then also, we've had some improvements starting last year where we've tried to build up the retained earnings, where the concept before was to deplete the retained earnings, which is our savings account, and then use the balance from the stabilization fund to fund the remainder of it. And that was the practice in the past. We're doing things a little in reverse, where we're using the stabilization fund, building up the retained earnings so we can get this enterprise fund off the ground, be healthy where it needs to be, and then have less reliance on the stabilization fund moving forward. So big decrease there on the stabilization fund, happy with that. And I believe at the end of the day, we're using about $800,000 in retained earnings, which is something that we were able to have in that account, which was something that wasn't available before. And then my last note is just 100% of this budget will be covered from revenues, the stabilization fund, and retained earnings of the fund. So no general fund subsidy, still able to operate within itself, within the guidelines that you guys provided in the past. We're still able to operate with that, which is a good sign.
So one quick one, Rich, in terms of Phase 2 connections likely to begin additional flow from the Meeting House Pond sewer, have you included any of that assumed revenue, or are you not being conservative? Or
We're being conservative, but assumed revenue.
Okay.
Assumed revenue. We are expecting a notice to connect in the next month or two. By July 1,
Right.
we're going to have properties connected. There's going to be real additional flow from Phase 2 into the sewer system that's going to be accounted. So we tried to be conservative, but we did take into account that. And same thing with the betterment revenue. We have the additional debt. We're understanding, because this is something that I'm working for, is to make sure that we get that betterment assessment out as soon as we can to hit in fiscal year
Offset.
'27 to offset that debt.
Yeah, I mean, to Tony's point, I mean, especially on this account, there are so many moving pieces that you want that visibility to then be able to go in, you know, as Mark can explain, no, this came from this, because with this OpenGov, you'll actually see and drill down to every, you know, backup behind every moving part. But this is definitely, we're still in learning mode. And Rich, you might take the opportunity for the public might be listening is, you know, there's an important rate aspect that we're also looking at with an outside consultant to make sure that we're in a good spot.
Exactly. We have consulted a third party to come in and basically take a review of everything that we've done so far, from how we've assessed betterments, where our rate structures are compared to some of the other towns, and just make sure that we're on the right path for the additional phases of sewer that we have planned. I'm happy with this budget, because last year this was a very difficult exercise to try to balance this budget. And so to be able to deliver something that is a bit of a silver lining, the fact that we got a 10% budgetary surplus that's going to close out to retained earnings if we don't use it. We have a good handle of what those operational costs are. They're being covered in this budget, and we're relying less on the stabilization fund. That's good news.
Yeah.
Before that, only because I just don't want to forget the point. So if you look at line 2, where we've got FY '26, those again are just budgeted. We're not seeing actuals, but am I correct if you look at the septic disposal, that budget of FY '26 of 650 is going to be much higher when you close out actuals, don't you think?
For the septage?
Yep.
No. For the septage, no. I think we went high on the septage of 640, but we went extremely low on the sewer fees
Okay, all right. So
itself. So
looking
vice
together,
versa,
yeah.
I think we projected, I have the numbers somewhere in here, but we projected about 210,000 in sewer revenues in fiscal year '26. We're halfway through the year. We've already exceeded that revenue amount. And so we're going to exceed that. So we're a little high on the septage revenue. I think we're going to be close. Next year, we're doing conservative, but we're definitely going to exceed our sewer revenue for this year. So
You're
we're in a,
anticipating.
yeah, so we're in a
Just
good spot.
anticipating, yeah.
No, my question was, do you have any, because I was looking at that ratio, do we have a update on the percentage of hookups in Phase 1 that are complete? Just to get a sense of the revenue versus how many left to hook up.
I think the answer is yes. Do I know it off the top of my head? No, I don't know that number, but we are going through a great process with assistance with the Board of Health to get properties that aren't connected.
Kevin?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Just, the last Board of Health meeting a couple of weeks ago, I think they were down to 3 maybe in Phase 1. There's
Wow.
3 left that have not hooked
That's
up
great.
yet.
Yeah, a majority of the big users
Yeah.
are connected. and
That's
I
the
think
key.
that's
From
the
a
key.
revenue flow standpoint, we're well over 95%.
Yeah.
So Kevin, to your point about, so on sewer rates, the budget for FY '26 or the anticipated revenues was 250,000. As of right now, we've collected 255,000. So that came into the considerations when we talked about a number to estimate for those sewer rate revenues.
You have the septic hauler, number 2?
Septage is 390, 317, year to date.
So
So you're on track to the
we are
650.
very much
You're
on
already
track.
Yeah.
covered, Yeah.
I think we budgeted 640.
Yeah.
We
600.
budgeted, kept that, no, we actually went down to 590 on that one, because you were thinking about how more people are connecting, that number may come down a little bit.
We're only
Yeah,
halfway.
okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It really is performing. And again, credit to you and, shout out to Veolia, the plant operator. They, similar to water on call, they do on call in the event of an odor or something, and they are incredibly responsive. They really are, so.
Listen, credit to the forethinkers of the sewer system to have the septage component, because I think that has certainly helped the health of this fund quite a bit over the years. So I
Alan.
think that was a good choice.
All right.
Good.
So we covered DPW, enterprise funds. What's next, Darren? I can't wait.
Capital? No?
Are you good? Are you good? Anything else?
It was just capital. I didn't know if we're doing capital.
We're not going to be
today
doing
or-
so I just want to, as a clarification, because of the charter requirements, we will be holding the capital budgeting process on March 4th.
March 4th.
So we'll come back then. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Stacy, Nate, thanks.
I think maybe next we could bring up the select board budget and discuss the economic development budget, and then follow that up with the position requests.
Sounds good. Thanks, Darren. It's okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll bring up the budget for select board. You'll see that there's $150,000 allocated for economic development. Amanda.
Okay. Well, I did want to, just by way of background, let you guys know that I think this past year, there was some work in this area done before I came on board. Obviously, as you know, there was the 2022 Economic Development Plan that really sort of started moving a lot of this forward. But then there was an article, warrant article at the 2024 annual town meeting that allocated a pot of money to go towards economic development and community development projects. And that has enabled me to pilot a few of the initiatives that were outlined and highlighted in the economic development plan that would be helpful in supporting our small businesses, increasing our economic vitality here in the town of Orleans. And so I look at this past year as building a lot of that foundation. And so this budget request is kind of, it's not a one and done with a lot of those things. The pilots that worked, we want to carry forward. The greatest example of that is the local impact grant program. This past year, we gave out a little over $50,000 to 9 local businesses for different types of initiatives, and we'll be giving a full report once I have all of their final reports in. And so it was a very successful program. We had over 20 applicants, and it was, I should say, local businesses and community organizations for local community events as well. And it was very well received, and I think not only did it help expand the businesses and the community organizations' capabilities, but and develop their kind of expand their businesses, but also look at Orleans as a collaborator and a partner and somebody who is invested in them, who invests so much into this community. So that was that. One of the other things that I'm piloting right now at the moment is a technical assistance program, partnering with a local nonprofit who carries out technical assistance and targeting it towards Orleans businesses and really providing them not only with generalized workshops, but targeted one-on-one assistance as well. And so I built in a little bit to keep carrying that type of thing out, but there will be a full program evaluation around that once that's done. And if we find this model isn't quite what the businesses need, we will adjust and find something else that does work. The other thing is that you'll notice in here is there is a line for consultants intern. I did have an economic development intern this past year. It was incredibly helpful to me in terms of helping me with special projects, data collection, and this business survey. I don't know if that's the specific thing that I would carry out this summer, but I do feel like it's something that yes, an option. And then also, we'd love to explore. We talk a lot about diversifying the tax base, and there are ideas thrown out about the blue economy. But I would love to be able to bring someone in who helps us really figure out what that means for Orleans, rather than talking about this is what this town does and this is what this town does. I'd really like to be able to target what will work here. And I will say one thing that has piqued my interest is there's in the local grassroots economic development world now, there's a lot of talk about small scale manufacturing. And that is something that we have here in Orleans. It's not something that's really highlighted. And as we move forward with some of the marketing and communications initiatives and business recruitment, I'd love to talk about that and how that there's a lot of people. I use this example all the time. Nauset Lantern, they produce their product right on site and they export it off Cape. It's not just sold here. It's they now have a second location in Hingham. So I think those are the types of things that I have in mind. But I'm obviously going to kind of work within the framework that we already have to really figure out what can we do in terms of diversifying.
Just a point on that, only because we had a budget primer session with the regional high school. It included the elementaries, but before that, we got a tour of the new remodeled high school the other night, and I was amazed. And to talk about manufacturing, the shop class that also includes manufacturing, I'll call it, of crafts, including art and
Yep.
jewelry.
Yes, they have a great
was
program there. Yeah.
Amazing. So,
And that's where, so for example, Molly Avalar went through that program
Yes.
at Nauset High School, and she has a workshop in her store where she produces her jewelry. So when we talk about manufacturing, I think a lot of people think like big, dirty, and it doesn't have to be that, especially here on Cape Cod. I think that's something that we really do excel at, but I'd love to bring more of that to Orleans and, you know, enhance that sector. That's one thought I had. But, you know, I also, in terms of the professional development, I think there are avenues for me to get out in the wide world and figure out what are other communities doing, and really find some best practices out that are not just local, state, regional, but international. So I'd really like to be able to kind of explore that. And then there is some of my communications budget is in here as well. I, you know, originally it was included because we do want to do a lot more targeted communications to our residents and townwide mailers, things like that I think we could be doing a lot more of. And then also, like I said, strategic marketing to support business retention. We've done a lot of work on, again, building the foundations for a really good marketing plan and execution of that plan. But so I think we're ready to go to that next step. In this memo, EDP in parentheses means that it relates directly back to the economic development plan. So and I think at a future meeting we can talk about the economic development plan, but I do want to note, I went through it the other day, and we have ticked a box in almost every single category, if not more than one. And I want to just highlight the town has made other investments outside of the warrant article money and budget money, but it's, you know, the investments in Rock Harbor and Town Cove, those were specifically called out in the economic development plan. Also, I mean, my position was also one of those investments. And then Tonset, the access to water was something that was called out. And so I think that the town should celebrate that we are making economic development investments. And so I think it's just building on all of that and moving forward with it.
great.
So, yep.
Thanks, Amanda. So I know we have this as a line item in the budget, but it's the overall select board budget. So any questions of the select board about our budget? Andrea, go ahead.
I cannot advocate more strongly for this. The economic development progress that having a professional in the town to move the plan along is incredible. Amanda's job right now, the portion of it that's communication versus actual in kind of economic development, thinking, harvesting, taking the plan from something on the page to action needs a lot more time. But also, I guess, for us to contemplate, we know that in the planning and development of a town, we've made hardscape improvements in the physical world, like our Main Street redo, our sewer system. We haven't made as concrete, we haven't developed our thinking about what is the role of government to set the table for local business. And that plan was going to help us tease out, experiment, and then reassess. And so I'd like this to not just look at a one-year plan, but really start talking about, you know, what are our realistic expectations for reinvestment and evaluation over a five-year period at least. And because I can see staff growing and a much more visible return on investment kind of process of our thinking. And some of the things, like Michael and I talked to somebody who was harvesting oysters in another part of Massachusetts and turning them into sweaters and trying to get that business to come down here, or our investment in both traditional and non-traditional aquaculture and fishing, along with manufacturing, so that a showcase, a mini Faneuil Hall, to showcase that local businesses are a priority. There's part of our investment, and how do we make that clear is kind of that 5-year conversation as opposed to Amanda having to come to us each year.
Thanks, Andrea. Yep. Michael?
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for all you do, and not just in the economic development or all the other projects you got working, so I appreciate it. I guess the question here, this budget here, this $65,000 in marketing, this is in addition to then what we give the chamber? Okay, and that's about 65 or something like that, too.
Yes.
And yeah, and that's for marketing and,
So-
Different communication.
Chamber has a contract that specifically identifies what they provide in services to the town.
I know.
That is not this.
No, I understand that, I'm just trying to ask the question. Okay, you know, as I look at this, one thing I brought up to you before, and we've discussed, is there's 400 businesses in town. And this portion of money is gonna be focusing on all the businesses, right? Because the chamber doesn't do all the businesses that we have in town. They do some of the biggest, but we wanna make sure, if we're talking especially about our local businesses, that this is definitely open to them, and we are marketing to them, and that they're aware, because a lot of times you get people, of course, saying, I didn't know there was this things, because I'm not on this list, because I'm not part of this. You know, you
and
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, and that's where I think, you know, when we did the small business survey, I really truly think we got the high rate of return on that was because we did a direct mail to all addresses, because there are businesses that are brick and mortar, but they're also home based, and so we want to help, you know, serve all of them. Yep.
I mean, I see, again, I've mentioned a few about what my economic drivers of the town, as you heard, the beach.
Yes,
But, you know, this is in addition to that. You know, how do we, I like to see the money go to building the infrastructure of the town. That's going to drive businesses to all businesses, drive consumers to all businesses, where it's not just landlord improvements, if you would. It's actually the people that are starting that business.
Right.
And I just want to make sure we're going in that direction. And then I'd love to see in the general fund, too, how we split this out. And maybe there is you know, we split economic development into its own little subcategory in our general fund, so that we can grow it from year to year and see the progress and not have it mixed in with everything else, which then is hard to, later on, it'll be harder to figure out what the benefits were. And then I think that's it. But thank you for what you do, and I appreciate it and supportive.
Mark, anything? Okay, good.
Tony's bursting it out.
Alice was up, so I saw Alice first. Tony next.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Amanda as well. And having been involved in the formation of the Economic Development Plan many years ago as a planning board member, I had a couple of questions, or just some thoughts to dovetail with comments that have been made. In regards to the blue economy, such a lot of opportunity is right at our feet with our redevelopment of Rock Harbor, our potential to do something with the town-owned land there where the building was destroyed, to have experiential opportunities for people to actually go down there. And I'm wondering to what extent we've reached out to the commercial fishermen and those that will be, you know, coming by boat and truck to you know, do their work in that area. I would really, really encourage us to do some outreach to the commercial fishermen in regards to what they might need and how we can start moving forward, and to take advantage of our space down there where we've already made such a huge investment. The other thing is the Economic Development Plan makes real recommendations regarding the necessity to move away from just retail and food enterprises. And so to the extent that I absolutely do want to support local businesses, I had the same question as you, Michael, in terms of how does this 65,000 work dovetail with the chamber's work, which really does kind of advocate for those more traditional Main Street businesses. And a highlight of the plan is also encourages experiential opportunities. So thinking about Michael's comment of leveraging what can we be doing at the beaches. To me, I was delighted to see a yoga business show up in town recently, which is kind of an experiential business. But I guess what I'm suggesting is, can we think creatively? And maybe Amanda could get some thoughts on this as you're doing your research, as you said, in regards to how do we start dovetailing that gem of a beach with the potential revenue that could come from new businesses connected with that beach, with experiential opportunities. I think that would be great. And I guess that's it. But thank you very much for moving this forward, and thank you very much for the job in your department as well.
Kevin, if I can just follow
Yeah.
up one thing, if sorry.
I'll get to Tony.
Oh, okay.
but Go ahead, Michael.
One thing I forgot to mention, I love the this, the marketing communication, and I know you've probably thought about it, but the tech school has a great publishing, and you were talking about making mailers and things like that, and if we can get schools involved and maybe a different, younger slant on looking at how we bring people to the town would be fantastic. And the last thing, one of the things, I don't know if I mentioned it during my comments on the beach, is I would love to see an outpost down at that beach, whether, that again, we have thousands of captive audience there every weekend. And we have nothing that really directs them back to the center of town, back to any of our businesses. So when you have that kind of audience and you're not showing, I do the farmer's market on the weekends on Saturday. I go down Main Street, it's dead. Because they're all at the beach, which there should be. But we're missing the eyeballs of then getting them not to go back to Dennis, which is a great town in Yarmouth, all wonderful towns, to shower and change. They're probably not coming back to Orleans. How do we get them once they're here to then go up to Main Street, to go to our restaurants, to shop our shops? Whether it's kind of an easy outpost down there, a lot of towns have those little sheds or whatever they do, and we could figure out some way with the chamber of how we can work together to get all those eyeballs back to our town and our restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
Interesting. Thanks, Michael. Tony?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, my crusade typically is how to reduce expenses, but as you were talking, I thought of something where I had an expense here, and also maybe it's a chance to raise revenue. I went to the library to use some of those students, of which Kim's son is
Device,
one,
device.
and they were fabulous.
Yeah.
And my hope would be that you could set up a business for the town where you employ those guys because they're out of school at the end of the year, and we pay them, whoever they are, to help businesses and residents how to help in their computers. It's just an amazing service. It's not used. I don't think many people know they're there, but they are fabulous, and I learned a lot. And, I was sent by the military to learn how to program in zeros and ones back in the 60s, and I haven't progressed, but they were so helpful to me. I just think that's something, and I think it's something for which the town could charge a fee and pay those guys as they graduate from high school and even college, that kind of thing. So I would hope you'd think about that as a business. And when you were talking about computers helping businesses, that's a great start for those guys.
Yeah, Tony, that, again, as Amanda said, and I really heard it, I wish our Select Board member, Meph Runyon, was here too, because he has talked so much about how do we actually define and do things around the blue economy, and Amanda said it. This is actually let's define what that means. Right. And to Tony, your point, there is a marriage between technology, because we now have shark tracking. What's next? It's probably going to come next week. It moves so quickly. So I think this is really opening the door to an opportunity that Orleans is open and welcomes, and a little bit of support goes a long way. Nice. I think we're good with the Select Board budget. Yes, please, Elaine.
I just want to commend the town for working with the Chamber of Commerce to get some tenants in our downtown Orleans. That's a collaboration between the private sector and public sector, and then the chamber working together. And as a former business person who used to stage some huge events in this town, I have to say, not having affordable housing for people to live here, young people that have the kind of energy that want to put on these great big events, you know, like is happening down at the beach. And to your point, Michael, we absolutely are not trading in on our Nauset Beach. We should have a big, like, retail store downtown with all kinds of Nauset Beach.
Right.
Have artists, for example, competing to make designs for different types of Nauset merchandise. So that merchandise now gets spread all over Cape Cod, all over North America. I mean, you have to think in a much bigger picture, and with $150,000, that is not a drop in a bucket.
Yeah.
Not a drop in a bucket. You know, again, reflecting back on my business, you know, I was way out in the bitter end of Orleans. We had no other businesses out there. We would take at least, I want to say it was about 18% of our overhead on advertising. And I want to say now more than our payroll. And by doing that, we then were able to generate enough payroll to have people live here and make really good living. My point is simply, it's such a huge thing, the affordability, the nurturing people that have those kinds of really profound creative ideas out there. And we are not at all trading in on Rock Harbor, Nauset Beach, Skakit Beach. Just, that's my 2 cents.
No,
Good.
great.
Good, Elaine.
Thanks, Elaine. So positive, and I think that's the message that, you know, this budget sets, is a foundation for more to come. I think, Andrew, your comment about if we can view this more than just a one-off,
Yeah.
to have a plan that supports Amanda's thinking and see this, you know, grow and learn.
Tie it to the economic development plan.
Plan, yes.
You've got to,
Yeah,
that Amanda brings it back to the plan all the time is wonderful.
Okay, so I think we're good with Select Board, including this new initiative. So we've got 2 positions left to talk about.
Correct. Since both divisions fall under Mark, we're going to have Mark discuss these.
So neither one of these positions are in the budget.
Right.
One of them is the proposal to have a inspector for short-term rentals that the Board of Health is planning on looking at a new regulation that would require additional staff. Would also come along with fees to cover the costs of that inspector. And so the Health and Human Services Director, Alex Fitch, has been working with other staff to analyze what would be needed and looking at budget-related matters and the cost of the individual. This is probably going to be a net neutral position should we decide to move forward with it. So really no budgetary impacts here, but wanted to bring that up to you all as one of the pieces that is not in the budget but is being discussed.
So can we pause on that for a moment and kind of look at Kim too? And I mean, the short-term rental bylaw, the whole foundation for this is established.
Yes.
How do we, I mean, short answer, how do we budget it knowing that we will have the revenues coming in? Because I think the state doesn't let us recognize those revenues for at least a year, right?
Correct.
So we're in this like startup period. How do we do this?
I mean, knowing that the position will be revenue neutral, I mean, it's essentially, you can add it, but it's, you know, right now your budget is balanced, but barely, right? And so I think that's kind of the conversation, which is, you know, for both of these positions, you know, this one, I think, can find a place in this budget now. We know what's coming. For the second one we're going to talk about, I think realistically, we can wait until the fall when we have our excess levy or new growth, because it takes that long to hire someone anyway. So, you know, we could be posting in July and getting someone on board when we need it by the time we get to STM. So,
To funding.
right, exactly. So there, I mean, rather than, I mean, the other alternative, of course, is to put these forward now and ask the community, do they want to fund them as an override, which is a practice that you've done in the past. So, I mean, it might be yes, but realistically, from a planning perspective, I think we know we can do both. I think it's just, can we wait 6 months? Can you wait 4 months, right? So,
And Alex, welcome, glad you're here.
Hello.
Yeah, so I think you're kind of hearing us, think about this now. We will have a number of weeks to come where there could be some, I'll call it openings in the budget. I'm looking at Kim, like
well, the other part I want to say,
health insurance.
you've heard everybody talk tonight, the departments, about how successful we've been in recruiting and hiring. Every community on the Cape is in the same exact position that we are right now in terms of trying to find ways for enforcement related to these short-term rentals. It is definitely to our benefit to take the risk and go out there and recruit the best so that we have a staff in place so this thing can get going, right? Otherwise, we're going to be trying to basically catch and then train when someone is already secure in another location. So, maybe you think about it as half of the year won't be funded and half of it would be, right, for the first year. I'm just saying conceptually, the revenue will come in. It'll come in as miscellaneous, but like you just, you plan for 6 months of covering it, and then money starts to generate, right? So then, and then future years, it's completely covered and recognized, right?
I'm just thinking only, and I'll get to other members, but we do know February 10th or 11th, Cape Cod Municipal Health Group is likely to vote what the rates will be. Fingers crossed that if the direction is they go lower than our estimate of 15%, right? Does that open up?
We're not going to have room in that line.
Okay,
We already know that.
okay. I'm just trying to find a way.
And
Darren has a good idea here.
You could temporarily fund it through free cash since it's it'd be a one-time expenditure. So we could do that as a temporary. Yeah, and we know it'll be coming in.
Yes. Yeah.
So that could be the gap funding for it.
Yeah. Well, I think, and Alex Fitch, you were nodding when Kim was saying, get out there early to recruit, retain is so important in this area. And again, it's something that our voters blessed and we should fund it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So, Michael, you had your hand up.
I agree. I support this. I would love to see it, be able to get into the budget. And I know you guys will work very hard to make that happen. One thing I would comment, and I think I talked with Meth about this, I think we should be thinking a little further ahead for a couple of years. I really appreciated the analysis of how much this person's going to do, but a lot of it looks to me as I would have hired somebody in the first year. The setup is going to be a big lift on this. It's probably, and I don't know, it's going to be self-reporting the next year and sending in photos, and I assume there's going to be software, and if every town in, or we think it's a big deal right now in Orleans about the short-term rentals. I was just talking with someone, and I hate to use anecdotal of the day, but just in Barcelona, they're talking about how short-term rentals, and they're changing all their laws. It's killing the world right now in cities all over the United States and internationally. So there is going to be ways to follow through with these, I'm sure, so all that's saying is, I think time will open up for this position in future years, and that's why I think we should be more looking at a compliance officer.
Right.
That can then, once you put it into one bucket, I don't know, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes with the steps and the titles and the labeling, then it's a pain in the ass to switch somebody, excuse my language, later on. But maybe we start with the title of a compliance officer, focusing on the rentals. There is going to be a ton of other things that are brought up across this board that whether it's signage or I could, name whatever, that we all are looking for maybe a little bit more compliance because we want to be able to follow through with basically what the town has voted at town meeting, and a lot of it will fall under Alex and her department in the Board of Health. So why don't limit ourselves is all I'm trying to say with this position that we know it may need to grow. And I think that's all I got for that.
Andrew, go ahead.
I do, but Mark's got his hand up.
All right, Mark, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. 2 points. One, the planning board is dealing with several avenues that have a compliance component to it, and I don't think we want to get overly involved in the Board of Health regulating signage or other things. I think we need to stay on track with, and I hear what Michael's saying, and I think the planning board is, as I said, looking at how they can deal with some of those issues about compliance to zoning regulations and bylaws. This is a very specific thing. My only question is, because in the past, when we talked about this, we talked about all rentals in town. And I think where we have a new zoning bylaw overlay district in the downtown, hopefully the Attorney General is going to okay that bylaw in the near future. I know that there are several developers, people in town already, owners of property that are looking at utilizing that bylaw overlay district to create more housing. And so theoretically, we are going to have more rental housing in this town. And so, you know, people that are living in year-round rental properties need to have the assurance that the property is safe, that the landlord is maintaining a safe property. So I think that needs to be part of the discussion too, in terms of not just short-term rental inspections, but rental inspections. And I don't know if this is the, you know, the time or place to do that, but I think we need to start certainly with the proposal for the short-term rental inspection and the revenue source that that brings with it. But we can't forget the fact that we need to be looking at year-round rentals as well. We had a tragedy in town in an
Exactly.
illegal apartment that was rented year-round. It wasn't a short-term rental. So that's gotta be part of the discussion at some point.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Alex, please.
I just wanted to jump in terms of the word compliance, just remind everyone that this is about health and safety
Right.
overall. And the idea certainly would be to grow the program into encompassing all rentals, but to start with short-term rentals just to get us going. And that's going to be plenty of work for somebody in the first few years.
Yep. Thanks, Alex. Good.
Kevin, can I
Yes, please.
pile on now? Thank you, Mark. I love it when you take my points and run with them ahead, because you look smarter than me, so I like it.
He looks awesome out
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
He
yeah.
really does.
But those were my exact points, is that how do we, because in the logic, and I want to support this, we should get it online now, as soon as possible, but how do we make sure that the growth, if it's for the 2026 Springtown meeting, do we have any time to register all rentals or only short-term? And that would be another agenda item. Just want to raise that.
Yeah, let's park that for future, but this is definitely going to evolve, but we've got the right people on it. I think, you know, I like Darren's idea as to how we could actually provide for it, despite Kim's concerns, which you should have.
That's her job.
And we appreciate that. That is your job. So the second position, again, much needed, also for succession planning, all good. I think, you know, Mark, you want
I'll
to?
just speak quickly to that. You know, we've had a conversation last fiscal year about the creation of a new position at the Council on Aging for a assistant director role. We've obviously heard the needs for that role. We know that it's important for succession planning, which is one of our priorities. But fitting it into this budget right now, it's a little different than the previous mentioned position, having those revenues to offset. This is a long-term addition, and so, as Kim mentioned, thinking about maybe looking at something for the fall potentially, and looking at excess levy to fund this may be the best option in this current fiscal year looking forward.
Yeah, I don't think any of us would disagree on the value. I think it's just the timing. And I just want to say to the board, I think we do well by sending the message to our community. We really are striving to be as fiscally conservative this year as possible.
Yeah.
There's just so many headwinds, and to be able to say no overrides, no special articles, we're working within the resources that we have, and yet at the same time, we can find ways to still be creative. I hope that's doable. And the other thing, too, and I did share this with Kim and town staff, I hope if we do a fall town meeting, this is just me talking, not the board, we go very light and we go early, because you know that there are, you know, what are they called, midterm elections, the ballot box, just from petition articles I'm hearing from the state, could be as many as a dozen.
Wow.
I'd like our
Yeah.
focus, if we could, this is just me talking, to be very light on a fall town meeting. Yeah.
Can I respond, Kevin, just because I'm the COA liaison, and it's, again, we're talking about the town serves. This is like the biggest segment of our population, unfortunately, right now. And the challenges within the COA that really demand attention to succession and planning. I'll be bringing up an agenda item for the select board later. But I think this is something that is well postponed to the fall, because I think we should be mapping overall our expectations about service delivery and facility with that conversation. We don't have time for that right now.
Logical. All right. Thanks, you guys.
Good.
We're good.
Yeah.
All right. That concludes the Select Board workshop on our FY27 budget for now. I think,
Mr. Chair, I move that,
I just want to ask Darren, just, preview coming attractions we are looking at.
We have a March 4th budget hearing that will be focused on the capital and CIP. I want to ask the select board what you want to see, because we have obviously a number of other budgets that we would like to present if you want. I mean, you obviously want when and want you to that are within the general fund, and we need to probably discuss revenues. So I think there was a discussion about revenue. So do you want to do a February 11th meeting?
I do not. I mean, if there's need or want, I think we'd be better to take a little bit more time to digest everything. When will OpenGov be available to us, Mark?
That will be our plan for March 4th.
So there has been a delay with OpenGov, as you know. We went through a process in the summer through implementation where we lost our person, and there was a transition from.
Oh, the vendor?
Yes, so at OpenGov, we were working with an individual who left abruptly, and there was no clear, smooth handoff of that work. And so right now, we are in the process of working with what they call expert services, getting a team back together to literally put everything together for us. And so meeting with them Friday morning, and I've expressed the urgency of this matter, and the reporting has finally come together. So what you see on these reports from the enterprise funds, you're going to start to see that with the overall budget, and that will be helpful. But we really want to make sure that the stories and the budget book is not something we're going to say here, and guess what? There's more work, and it's going to change. We want that budget book to come out to the public and be what it is. So I know you've been patiently waiting for that. It's going to be worth it. We're getting there.
Great.
So if the board's okay, let's plan the March 4th meeting on CIP, and we'll call it
At 3 o'clock?
at 3 o'clock, and clean up of any other departments, outstanding issues, or more information that may come up after you review more of the information. So is that okay?
Are you willing to go 3 hours? Because 2 hours may not be enough.
We've already been going 3 hours today. We started at 2:15 today.
I'm just saying strictly for budget, though. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, 3 hours for budget. Okay. Okay.
I mean, I think it can go, if I may, Mr. Chair,
please.
sooner, but we'll be getting this information out earlier to us, so it won't be.
CIP is already,
He's out.
So we're going, is there a reason, shouldn't we do it sooner than later? If it's already out?
There's a posting requirement, like the time that you have to have it on the website before we do it. Last year I think it was March 12th. I think it was when it was done last year.
I mean, I hate waiting till the last time and have
Yeah.
a huge amount of time to do this, because then everybody's going to.
Well, the CIP is
If it's
teed
out.
up for 3-4, but
It
I
is.
think where you're going is, do we have other operating budget-related questions that we want to hold a special session between?
I don't know. I mean, we've gotten through most of the
We
big
have,
parts,
yeah.
which is great, and I don't have a lot of questions, but I'm, again, looking at a budget from a couple weeks ago.
We can get that. We can probably update that one. And sorry. go ahead, Mark.
Again, there's really not any major changes to those numbers.
Okay, but it would be great to get another.
No, I understand. I'm just letting you know, if you have questions about the budget, you should be able to glean from what you have, and that will be able
We
to.
have, yeah, okay.
So those numbers, if you look at those numbers that you have in front of you and you have questions or concerns, ask those questions, because there's not much that's gonna change.
Good.
Okay?
I mean, do we do a 1 hour meeting for CIP? I don't know. I mean, if it's done, it's done. I think it's, I'm always for getting it done quicker, because if,
You mean sooner?
sooner, quicker, apologize. Yeah.
Well, posting notice requirements, I think at this point, the earliest we could schedule this is March 4th, right?
CIP, but
Then
in
that's-
the operation.
And it's not a question.
That's what's driving
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
is the required notice. Right.
Yeah, and the other issue is just the other operational budgets. Like if you want to do it on that day, that's your prerogative.
I would just add that we could do some of the, we'll have to do the CIP review on the 4th, but there's another requirement for the budget hearing being
FinCom.
by March 15th, I believe, and so we'll have another one. And so you'll have the opportunity to go over some of the operational budget on the 4th, and then again for the final budget hearing.
We do have 2 bites at the
more.
apple. Yeah. Ed, please.
A big component of our budget is the school budgets. And at the presentation last week, I thought I heard May 26th is the release date. Did I mishear?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to
So we're just estimating, we're not going to have their final budgets until the 26th, and then we'll just do the best we can? Didn't the superintendent say the 26th of March?
I wasn't there, was that
or May.
March, not
March, I'm sorry,
It's usually
I'm
March.
sorry,
Yeah.
March.
Okay, okay.
That's pretty
March
typical.
26th.
They usually, end of March, they get
But
their
how does that factor in now with our May 4th and May 12th
Well,
deadlines?
OES said that they're only going to go down. They budgeted as high as they could in terms of OES, so I think that's what we'll see. The other ones, we have the assessments. I know you have questions about the
No,
assessments.
no, yeah, yeah.
But we did reach out to their finance office, and they did provide those assessments to us. I know there's questions about whether or not those are real. So we'll continue to follow up with that, and we'll have those answers.
Okay.
We'll get a follow-up on all those
Yeah.
answers by March 4th.
Because it seemed like the Nauset Regional School District is lower than last year's.
So-
They are.
Pretty
They are.
substantially lower.
correct
Thinking they
me
might
if
be
I'm
missing.
wrong, but I think in the past, the way that this was handled, because your budget was actually finalized in early January, because it was based on 2-year previous data, any additional amount over the amount that you had budgeted for the school went to the town meeting as an override. So we're gonna, right now, our budget is balanced with 3% or whatever. If their budget comes in over, then that additional amount goes on the warrant as an override.
I just wanted to make sure that March 26th day was what I heard.
and they
it
often-
doesn't impact what your deadlines are, or that we can, like you do, factor in the flexibility into the budget to handle that.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Good question.
I think we're ready for closing this workshop out.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn the budget workshop at 4:46.
Moved and
Seconded.
seconded by Michael. By roll call, Mark?
Hi, Mark Matheson.
Hi, Michael Herman.
I, Andrea Reed.
Hi, Kevin Galligan. Our workshop is